If a little green is good, more is even better. Now, back to Green is Good with John Shigarian and Mike Brady.
Welcome back to Green is Good, and we're so honored today to have with us Lee Broughton. Lee is the head of corporate responsibility at Enterprise Holdings. Welcome to Green is Good, Lee.
Thank you very much, John. Great to be here.
You know, Lee, you have a very important position where you are, and we're so honored to have you because you're very busy. You're the Director of Corporate Identity and Sustainability at Enterprise Holdings, and that is a massive job, and we're going to get and tell our listeners a little bit more about what you're doing there. But before we do that, what we love to do when we have leaders like you, green leaders like you on our show, we want you to share your journey and your bio with our listeners rather than us, because it's so amazing, you know, how you got to where you are today. We'd rather you share the journey to your position now.
Sure, yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Well, I think that I'm sure that a lot of your listeners are kind of used to hearing a very varied sort of career paths of getting into sustainability, because it's a relatively new concept to a lot of the way business is interpreting it now. And so I think the paths of getting to it have also been well traveled. For me, I actually am a theology major, so I have quite a different path altogether, and then came into business through a consultancy that was a management consultancy in London. And so I kind of got used to positioning companies and understanding people's communication plans and setting some strategy for businesses. And one of those companies happened to be a new company called Enterprise Rent-A-Car in the UK about 1998. I worked on that account for about 3 years and then moved on to a law firm, and I did marketing for the law firm for a little while, but kept in touch with Enterprise in the hope that one day they may need some people internally in Europe. That day eventually arrived, and I've kind of been in the company now for 8 years. First of all, setting marketing communication strategies for us in Europe, and then more recently in this role, which is a brand new role for the company that's about 2.5 years old now, where we've now started formulating our sustainability strategy for a worldwide corporation.
Perfect. So your Office of Sustainability is about now 3 years old, you're saying?
That's exactly right.
Okay, and for our listeners out there, Mike and I have our laptops open. I have my iPad open. I want to send our listeners now to your beautiful website that you sent me to a couple weeks back. It's www.drivingfutures.com. Please, if you have your iPad or laptop open, or just write that down for later on when you're in front of one of your electronic devices. This is one of the best sustainability websites we've ever seen for any global brand in the world. Lee, talk a little bit about all the amazing things you're doing. For instance, first of all, let's start like at square one. This is a rental car company. Of course, you represent Enterprise Holdings represents some amazing brands, Alamo, National, and of course the flagship Enterprise brand. But what is a rental car company doing and investing in sustainability? Why and how?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. And it's one that we get asked quite a bit because we are really committing ourselves to this idea. And frankly, John, it's really about our future. I mean, we really believe that if we are going to have a successful business for another 55 years, and we've been in business now for 55 years, we're only going to be able to do that if we concentrate on understanding what is economically successful to us, what is successful to the communities that provide the mobility and the need to be mobile, and frankly, understanding our environmental impact. So it's very much about the future health of our organization. We believe that it's about being a responsible leader too. We're the number one in the rental car industry, pretty much every way you would look at it. And with leadership comes responsibility, and we feel that that's kind of another kind of reason, if we wanted it, beyond simply about the health of our organization, to kind of really invest and understand what sustainability means for us.
Okay, now let's step back. You've been, this corporate sustainability office has been under your careful stewardship now. You've been at the wheel, no pun intended, for approximately 3 years at this. talk a little bit about your initiatives. You have some unique and wonderful initiatives that all relate back to the triple bottom line. The famous, the old adage, the triple bottom line. What under your stewardship does triple bottom line mean at Enterprise Holdings, Lee?
Well, I think, very, very succinctly, we believe that a sustainable community is going to mean a sustainable business. And so the things that we're doing to engineer those sorts of things are kind of the way in which we framed what projects take priority at first. So as an example, in 2007, as we began to think about celebrating and commemorating 50 years in business, we wanted to do something that thanked our customers for keeping us in business for such a long time, and then thank our employee base for the loyalty and the fact that they've kept us as successful too. So that is where we began thinking about this idea of conservation.
Wow.
Conservation for us is a number of different things, but it was kicked off with a pledge to plant 50 million trees over the next 50 years in national parks with a public-private partnership between the Arbor Foundation and the U.S. Forest Service. So that's kind of gives you an idea of sort of how big we think, but also how it links to the fact that nature is important for a sustainable community, and a sustainable community is important to enterprise to ensure its sustainability. So the whole thing is kind of connected, although it may feel a little bit like, what's a rental car company doing?
Right.
Planting trees. Well, for us, reforestation is a big issue to communities. I mean, California suffers from many natural fires and disasters where it wreaks havoc on the forest, and forests are intrinsic to the water, the supply chain that are providing our drinking water.
Got it.
And so things like that, that's kind of the way that we're beginning to think. And then there are other initiatives as well, which on Driving Futures you can get into and sort of see that perhaps are a bit more obvious to our business, like the way we build our branches or energy efficiency or things like that.
Wonderful. And again, for our listeners out there, you have to check out Lee's amazing site that they've built for Enterprise Holdings, www.drivingfutures.com. It's so well done, and it's very inspirational, and it's very clear on all these great initiatives. Talk a little bit about the customers, your clients, those who then get into your cars. How are you engaging them? Because that's always tricky for all brands, and you're no different because you have a great touch on customers, and it's a very personal touch. What is the engagement that you've outlined? What's your vision, and how is it working, Lee?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really important question. And I think, as you said, a lot of businesses are at this stage now where they're thinking about wanting to engage their customer in some of this conversation. For us, we've centralized it around these three themes: legacy, foresight, and innovation. And it's being able to create a simple enough idea that can be easily communicated to a customer base that can understand some of these larger things that are going on, so that when they're making a purchase, obviously you don't make a purchase necessarily with thinking around Driving Futures or perhaps legacy, foresight, innovation. But what we're trying to do is help a customer feel like they are being a part of something that is bigger than just the transaction that they have purchased for that particular day's rental. And so we're using, the normal channels, whether it's advertising, whether it's the website, owned media, social media, to kind of get this message out. And we're really at the beginning of it. I mean, frankly, we've kind of been in our various hiding places, making sure that it's an integrated concept within the business. It's not just a public relations exercise, and that the business is really benefiting from this approach. And so that now that we feel that we're being able to get all of those things in line, that we can actually now come out to our customer base and say, what do you guys think about what we're doing? Do you believe it? Do you want more of it? And we're starting to kind of have those conversations. And frankly, it's very interesting. Anecdotally, there is a lot of interest, and I think that you can see that when you see all the buzz around the electric vehicles, for example.
Right.
That's a huge piece of what we're doing to drive the future, is invest in alternative technology and ensure that we're a significant piece in the value chain of bringing electric vehicles to market, bringing electric hybrids. Another example would be the shuttle buses that your listeners are on when they're going from the terminal to the rental office.
Right.
Those shuttle buses are, for us, powered by biodiesel.
Wow.
And then we have an Institute of Renewable Fuels that's looking at research into biofuel technology in the future. And we think that algae, for example, could be quite an important opportunity for us in terms of the way that we're fueling our cars with biofuel.
And there's so much to talk about. I'm going to try to. So let's go back. Let's just one step back, because you've got so many wonderful initiatives here. Talk a little bit about your alternative vehicles. How is the integration of hybrids and the EVs going into your fleet? Is it 1% of your fleet? Is it 0.5%? Is it 10%? How is that rollout going, and what is your client base saying about it?
Yeah, so we've been rolling. We made a year ago an announcement that we were going to buy 500 Nissan Leafs, which are the full electric, the first full electric vehicle on the market right now.
Right.
And that was the biggest commitment to date. And we've been taking delivery of those for the last 6 months. And they are being delivered around markets that mirror where Nissan itself is rolling out those vehicles. So it's not kind of a ubiquitous opportunity all over the country. It's only in 7 markets today. And in those markets, our locations are starting to take delivery of those things, and the customers are going crazy about them. I mean, it's a great thing to see. I mean, it's a big, it's obviously a big deal. It is clearly a line in the sand of where transportation is transitioning into, kind of 21st century ideas, and there's a lot of interest, and companies are wanting to ensure that their employees can get to drive them. We're seeing demand for extended test drives before customers think about purchasing them, because to some extent they are more expensive than their same-sized equivalent fossil fuel engine vehicles, and so you might want to test drive it for a week or two first to see whether you actually want to invest in
right.
that. And we're seeing a lot of interest on that level. So there's a number of really, really great things there that we feel that we are a part of driving that future.
Lee, is there a particular part of the country where the interest in the Nissan Leaf is a little higher than average, or?
Generally, I think from what we have heard, we're seeing interest and inquiry all across the country. But the marketing program that Nissan itself has kind of worked around is really around the two coasts for the most part, the east and west, but predominantly on the west, and then a couple of other places like Phoenix and part of Texas, and then a bit further up into Seattle and Oregon. There is lots of conversation about New York and down the East Coast as well, but predominantly those markets, their hometown is Nashville, and so that's going to be there as well. But actually, the interest is everywhere, Mike, and that's the thing that's kind of getting everyone very excited.
Do you see the momentum of the EVs and other transportation alternatives? What do you feel about that? Do you feel that momentum is going to continue to grow in velocity over the next 10 years, Lee? What's your visibility on that, and what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that it will. I think that you've got a number of things playing into it. I think there's a great desire to see stability of our energy from foreign countries dealt with. I think that you've got a desire through CAFE ratings, the corporate average fuel economy thing that NHTSA and the EPA have come up with for Obama. That's going to kick into play in a couple of years' time, where it will drive the MPGs up of vehicles that are being made. I think you've got everyone being much more cognizant and conscious of the environmental impact that vehicles are having. So I think that in the next sort of 5 to 10 years, what you'll see is that there will definitely be an increase in alternative vehicles on the market. I don't think that we're at any we're anywhere in the sand now where you can see the fossil fuel engine being less of the majority. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think that one of the things the stance that we've taken as the largest purchaser of vehicles in the world is that we're fuel agnostic. We want to provide what our customers want to drive.
Right.
And therefore, we feel it's very important to invest in these new technologies to ensure that they hit the economy of scale to make them appealing. And then our customers have the choice of whether they would like to drive them or not.
Right. Lee, you and your team have just done, again, I've said this a couple times, a marvelous job with your website. For those who are just joining us, we've got Lee Broughton on from Enterprise Holdings. He's the Director of Corporate Identity and Sustainability. Go to his website, www.drivingfutures.com. Lee, we're on the website now. And again, it's so inspirational in that you've got beautiful videos on it. But, on the left, on the page where it says our cultural compass, and that's such a nice way of putting your vision, your the company's vision, sort of framing this whole thing, our cultural compass. And on the left-hand side, for our listeners out there who don't have your laptop or iPad open, it says legacy, foresight, and innovation. You've got 68,000 plus employees in Enterprise Holdings. Talk a little bit about legacy, foresight, and innovation with regards, not with regards to your clients right now, with regards to your cultural compass and your DNA and how it affects your employees and how you're driving sustainability inside of the company and creating goals that are measurable inside of your company.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks. So what we've done is we've crafted a story that is very accessible for our employee base too, because it's obviously critical that everyone is working towards the same direction. So our cultural compass represents how we do our business in the community. So under legacy is kind of the who we are as an organization. It's the fact that we are owned by a family that has kept us private since the inception of the organization in the late 1950s. Wow. And it is about the fact that we are financially stable, that we are really vested around ensuring that our people are the best in our industry, and that's kind of the who we are. The foresight is this idea of how we do our business. So it's the fact that cultural compass represents things like diversity and inclusion, workplace quality, business ethics, public affairs and philanthropy, environmental conservation. That's our approach once we're in the branch of our employees and how they interact with their customer base and the community around them. Then innovation is this notion of where we're going as an organization. So the things that we believe are going to be important to us as a company to keep us relevant and ahead of the game over the next 50 years. And the way that we are able to tell our employees about that is to simply help them remember legacy, foresight, and innovation. And with those things, they become hopefully really vested in this journey themselves and feel that they understand what they're influencing every day in the location, or as they're helping walk a customer around the car, or whatever it happens to be. And in terms of goals that the organization has set, so the 70,000 employees plus,
right.
What we've done is we've made 2015 as the kind of first thing that we're all trying to get to as a company. And in 2015, the sorts of things that we want to see happen is the shuttle buses that I mentioned are powered on biodiesel today.
Yeah.
We want to ensure that all of them are 20% B20, sorry.
Right.
So 20% biodiesel. At the moment, their majority are only B5, so we believe that that's very important. We want to see our energy in our locations, the natural resources that we use to power our locations themselves, reduce in usage by 20% over the next 5 years. And then we have also made a commitment to ensuring that our locations are retrofitted, or the new ones are built from the ground up, using our internal rating system, the Enterprise Sustainable Construction Protocol. And we're investing more than $150 million in that over the next sort of 4 years now.
Wow.
And over the summer, we'll be producing our very first sustainability report that will give our stakeholders an understanding of where we are 1 year on that 2015 journey. So that just a flavor of
amazing.
some of them.
Unbelievable, from green building to alternative fuels. I want to talk about, in the last 3 or 4 minutes here, 2 very unique programs. I was so inspired when I met you personally, and I had the honor to meet you a couple weeks back in Washington, D.C., and I was so inspired by your passion and your vision of what you're doing in Enterprise Holdings. I did more homework on all this stuff, and I've been on your website 3 or 4 times. Talk a little bit for our listeners. 2 fascinating programs you're working on: your car sharing program, and I also want to talk about your Universal Lubricants program. Can you share a little bit with our listeners about those 2 wonderful new programs?
Yeah, great. So WeCar is our automated car rental, or most people understand it as car sharing.
Right.
And that is a brand that we launched as part of our enterprise rent-a-car retail brand that's centered in the home city. And really what we do is we work with corporations, universities, municipalities, and we provide them with the ability to use automation in their rental. So, say a university campus has a group of students on it that don't have their own personal vehicles necessarily, but they need to run errands or do whatever they need to do, then they can use WeCar. Similarly, a corporation that wants to reduce its fleet of pooled vehicles and replaces them with a couple of WeCars, and they are able to use the automated rental for that, either by the hour or however they want to use it. So, and that's something that is a couple of 3 years old for us now, but we're starting to really see some great momentum there, and we're very excited about it.
That's awesome.
The other thing you mentioned, Universal Lubricant, is another really cool story. So, unbeknown to many, you'd think that with a fleet of vehicles, one of the areas that we saw as a great opportunity was the recycling of oil and oil filters. And that's, in terms of our service bays that sit behind the rental facilities, we have a lot of vehicles that go through, kind of lubes and warranty work and all the rest of it. And we saw a great opportunity to not only save some money, but do some tremendous stuff for the environment, where we ensure all of our oil filters are recycled. And then we even, in selling them to companies that recycle them, we are then able to purchase back the refined oil, and so there's kind of almost a closed loop scenario there. So when we buy a brand new vehicle, the oil that we use to service that vehicle is actually recycled oil from our previous fleet.
Wow!
So it's we've got 2 great partners, Universal Lubricants and Safety Clean, and together they are able to really help us service our fleet in that area, and it's saving massive amounts of emissions, and is a really neat program.
That is just wonderful. We're down to the last minute and a half or so, Lee, and you've got so much wisdom to share. I want to leave this open for you to share. There's so many young people that listen. This show doesn't only broadcast in the United States, but after it gets uploaded on the iTunes network, we have listeners literally around the world that write to Mike and I all the time, from Shanghai and from Seoul and from the UK and from France. And I want you to share some of your wisdom, because there's a lot of young people that listen also to our show that say, I want to be the next Lee Broughton. Share, your journey and any other thoughts you have on where you've been and where we're going.
Well, I mean, thank you for that opportunity. I mean, I think that corporate sustainability is integral to value creation today in business, and there's lots of, I think you'll hear lots of conflicting thoughts around what that actually means, but ultimately, to concentrate on just pure bottom line profitability is a kind of a 20th century mindset. And if you look at who the successful companies are today, like Apple and Google and BYD in China, Walmart, Brazil with Hector Nunez and others, the things that are making them so successful is they have got a 21st century mindset where they think about human enhancement, natural enhancement, social capital complementing the financial growth of the company, that sort of thing. And I believe that we're going to see that in even greater levels of success going forward. And so in terms of people that are kind of inspired by those ideas and wanting to get into places in their companies that are helping influence that and helping understand what that means for their particular businesses, I actually don't think that there is a traditional route to take anymore. I think perhaps, in the past you may have had specialisms in marketing or specialisms in strategy or in finance. Well, sustainability is still being defined. And that actually gives you tremendous competitive edge if you have a discipline that is outside of the traditional norm, and then you take that specialism and try and understand it in terms of this new idea of value creation. And, particularly when you think about the triple bottom line. So I really encourage anyone that's kind of really wanting to kind of pursue that as a career, because that's certainly how I took it. I mean, I came from a traditional marketing and management consultancy type of background and have found my way into it. And, often the peers that you meet come from very different backgrounds as well. So I really encourage anybody to get into it because it's still being defined right now. Well,
we're so lucky, and the environment and the world is lucky that you chose this as your next path, that you chose sustainability, and you're one of those definers of what's happening in the sustainability world. Lee Broughton, we're so thankful that you came on today. For all listeners out there, go to his great website, Enterprise Holdings' great website, www.drivingfutures.com. Lee Broughton, you are an inspirational sustainability leader and truly living proof that green is good.